Hello there guys, welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Daniel Childs here again. Hope you're doing really well on this Friday. This is my review, my breakdown, my thoughts, extended thoughts on Chelsea beating Spurs 1-0 at the Bridge once again last night. A huge 3 points for Enzo Maresca, a huge 3 points that were so vital for Chelsea in the race for Champions League football, and also to spark momentum as we head into this crucial run-in before the end of this season. We're going to break down the team, the tactics, the performances, the crowd, the atmosphere, the chaos, the VAR, and of course Chelsea eventually getting over the line. Please do give me your thoughts, your feelings on the game in the comments below. Thank you if you're watching on YouTube for clicking on the video. Please like and share the video along with subscribing if you haven't already. And thank you if you are listening on the podcast. Whatever way you prefer, it really does mean the world to me for you to join and to listen to my thoughts and share in the joy of this big win. So pre-game, obviously there was concern. There was no doubt about that. I was expressing it, and also anecdotally, people who were going to the game weren't feeling that confident. But there was a feeling pre-game that I think turned that around and definitely contributed to the atmosphere that has been rightly praised by Maresca and the players, which was good to see. And there are a couple of things there. But before we get into that, let's talk about the lineup, and also, I guess, the one negative of the night and concern of the night from a Chelsea perspective that came pre-kickoff, which was the news that Wesley Fofana has suffered yet another injury setback. You know, like Lavia, like Reece James as well, it's a real worry, and I think it really does set the tone and kind of what needs to be done this summer, of making sure and mitigating having players and relying on players that just won't stay fit for a majority of it. It's just unworkable. You have to have players that you are pretty confident are going to be there 7, 8, 9 times out of 10 during the season, especially if you're going to be walking into Champions League football. We'll get into who took that opportunity and why I think that was quite revealing last night, but for Fofana, like for Lavia, I mean, James is staying fit at the moment, but we know from last night there's still precaution there. It's something you really have to mitigate in a squad. You can't have this number of players, especially players who seem quite defining for your level of performance as well, to be absent on a number of occasions. But that didn't scupper the mood pre-game, and I've got to give a lot of credit to We Are The Shed, great guys there who have not only in recent years contributed to some brilliant flags, pieces of art, really, Chelsea art, that have been shown in the stands pre-game, but also the recent kind of project they're doing of getting more noise in the shed, especially the shed upper for these Conference League games, that I definitely suggest you go and check out. It was a combination of the brilliant flag and brilliant demonstration in the Harding Lower and the shed pre-game that kind of obviously was celebrating Chelsea's 120th anniversary. But then I do want to give credit to the club, or whoever was responsible for it, of playing blue as the colour just before kickoff. We used to do it years ago, and then they stopped doing it for some reason. I don't really understand why, but you have Park Life, Liquidator as the players come out, and then they'd have blue as the colour. They decided to bring it out last night just before kickoff, and it rallied up the crowd massively. So much so that the crowd was still singing the song even after it had gone off and the game had kicked off. So it really did set the right tone for a hostile atmosphere for Spurs, really rallying behind the players, really upping the stakes of the game, making it feel like a huge occasion. And I think the players rightly responded positively to that. So hopefully that's something that now can remain for the rest of the season and moving beyond that. So Chalobah plays a ball over the high Spurs line. Quite comical, really, that Spurs apparently during their warm-up were really focusing on this ball over the top, but Van de Ven and Romero couldn't deal with it. Brilliant ball by Chalobah, and within an instant, we kind of see how Nicolas Jackson, his influence, his return made a massive difference presence-wise for this Chelsea team. And of course, that would have been wonderful. But, Nicolas Jackson, he does have a hand in some way. We'll get to it with the Enzo Fernandez goal, but Jackson did make a huge difference last night. Of course, there's still, you expect there to be some rust, because this is a guy who hasn't played a game since, early February when he got that injury, I believe, against West Ham. But this is a guy who I think does so much, especially off the ball, for his teammates, that I do think makes a difference. And I did believe, I said this in my preview, he will make Chelsea look like a more balanced team. And I think you saw that. He occupied both centre-backs. He was able to hold up the ball. He gave Chelsea a presence. And also because of his speed and movement, especially against this high Spurs line, you have another ability to hit the ball over that Spurs high line and look to get him behind. And we nearly did that within the first couple of minutes. So that was great to see. Moises Caicedo, I've just got it here, through the walls really. Obviously, he went down early and there was massive concern he wasn't going to be able to continue. But I mean, talk about durability and lack of durability from some players within this squad. It's actually incredible watching the durability of Caicedo, given how much he's been required to play this year. How many times in games I've watched him get what looks like a severe knock and him keep going and still have an incredible performance. Spoiler alert, Moises Caicedo is my man of the match. And I'm sure for many of you, your player of the season, because he's been outstanding. And I thought, you talk about players who really led the way in this game, making it feel like a big occasion, winning those 50-50s, adding that physicality, that confrontation that we desperately lacked at the Emirates. He was a key part of that, absolutely, and it was great to see. I remember one challenge in particular, winning the ball back from Van de Ven. Just outstanding, really. Van de Ven, this is not one of kind of his biggest attribute is his speed, right? And he was trying to bring the ball forward, and just the ability to win tackles cleanly when you kind of think there's going to be a risk of him fouling, and at the current moment him getting a yellow, which then means he misses the next game. Just outstanding footballer. I don't know how you can have so many problems with Chelsea, right? Valid ones, but I just don't know how individually you look at Caicedo and you don't conclude he's had a really good season. Individually, I mean, I've just been watching him all year, and I'm not saying he hasn't had any bad moments. I mean, even the best players will have some shaky moments within a season, but I think he's just been outstanding. I think the way he covers ground, the way he makes up for others, the way he's able to cleanly win tackles, add a durability, add a physicality, add awareness that hasn't been there in that position before, and I think it's great to see. The one negative I want to talk about from that first half and really from the game, individually from a Chelsea player point of view, is obviously Jadon Sancho. Sancho, this was another performance that kind of highlighted why many of us are kind of open to sending him back to Man United. He got into so many great positions, but the lack of shots again is just, it sounds dramatic, but it is unforgivable really at this level. This is not a inexperienced player. This is someone who's played top-level Bundesliga and Premier League football for a number of years. This is a guy who was literally playing in the Champions League final against Real Madrid at Wembley last May. This is not this is someone who, I know he's not an old player, but is someone that has played a lot of top-flight football. I expect so much more. For the areas and space he gets himself into, you can't call him a technically poor player. He is someone who's able to dribble past, get himself into good areas. But then when you fail to take the chance and you fail to take as many shots when you could, I just think it's a bit of a waste of time, because the intensity was being ramped up by his teammates, and you could see the visible frustration when he would get the ball, get himself into the box, and then either doubt himself, go backwards, try and beat another player. Simply just not good enough. And it's why Noni Madueke rightly came on later in the game, and I think will take his place. I do want to credit the half-time. There's always this concern when Chelsea hadn't scored in that first half. Are Chelsea's levels going to drop? Are they going to become complacent? And the good things we'd seen in that first half start to ebb away, which we have seen this season. But it's credit to Maresca, credit to the players that didn't happen. They just continued where they left off. And although Chelsea had found joy in hitting the ball over Spurs' high line, the goal itself actually comes from a situation where Spurs are kind of defending inside their own 6-yard box. Outstanding cross by Cole Palmer. Really, really good. Obviously, a lot of us, would have liked him to directly score in this game. That run still goes on, but he's directly contributed to a goal here, a winner, a key winner for Chelsea. Brilliant ball in the box, and there was Enzo Fernandez to head it away. His 5th goal of the season. Huge for Enzo, huge goal for Chelsea that proved to be the winner in the end. He scored twice against Spurs this season. His level of involvement, direct involvement in goals, have been impressive this year, or at least a vast improvement on what we saw before. And I've written an extensive Substack piece that will go out today that I'll definitely suggest you go and check out, where I talk a lot more about Enzo, his history at Chelsea and all of that good stuff. But really, Enzo Fernandez, I think in this game, you saw it again. him starting to become the player we need him to be, a star player, a needle mover, someone who is making defining contributions in big games of significance. He needs to keep doing that for Chelsea. And also just the value of having a goal-scoring midfielder once again is something that we haven't had for a long period of time. His numbers do need to get a lot better if we're going to get him anywhere near some of the great players in that position for Chelsea. However, it is an improvement. His created chances maybe haven't been capitalised on as much as they should have, which would have maybe shown in the stats, a more successful season for Enzo Fernandez. But I also want to talk about this goal where, just having the value of someone making that late run into the box. We saw it from the likes of Frank Lampard, but even the likes of Michael Ballack and Michael Essien, how big that would be, and if you have a centre forward that occupies those centre backs, but then you have a late run from central midfield, which then opens up space, it asks more questions of the opposition. The worst thing you want is one obvious threat, and then there's, an opponent knows if we can shut that player down, there's nothing they can do to score a goal, or there's very little chance of them scoring a goal. When you have more threats in your arsenal, obviously then there's more to worry about, and you have more confidence Chelsea are going to find ways to create opportunities. And I want to give credit to Nicolas Jackson. I mean, it's part of Jackson's presence, and I think you have to look at that goal and go, Jackson's presence has made a difference clearly in that goal, because Van de Ven and Romero are just kind of solely focused on Jackson. They seem to have no idea where Enzo Fernandez is, and maybe you're looking at the fullback there to make a difference, but I mean really it's so poor from those centre backs who get bigged up a lot. I don't see what everyone else does, to be honest, with Van de Ven and Romero. I think Romero is a bit of a hothead that we saw in this game again. He was shoved off the ball a number of times by Nicolas Jackson, and Van de Ven, I'm not saying he's a bad defender, but it kind of feels like he's a bit of a one-trick pony. Like, he's got the speed, but then very simple kind of bread and butter stuff. A ball comes into the box and you have no idea where Enzo Fernandez is. I just think it's bad defending, which kind of sums up Spurs. But obviously, huge goal, and great to see that Enzo gets the adulation from the fans, but also obviously he was bobbing his head late on when he got subbed to Tottenham get battered everywhere they go. So Enzo, got to give him his flowers, and hopefully he can score a few more goals between now and the end of the season, because this will be deemed, he's not going to be player of the season. I don't think he should be, because his season, in my opinion, in terms of performance level, didn't get going till like November, which means for me, you can't really be player of the season. But it has been a more positive season for him, and hopefully a turning point in his Chelsea career. The shame, the tragedy really, that Caicedo's volley gets ruled out, because it would have just made, obviously, the comfort of the rest of the game pretty easy for Chelsea. I think Chelsea, if that goal stands, I think Chelsea go on to win the game comfortably 2 or 3-0. I don't think Spurs would have offered anything. But obviously it was outstanding finish. Outstanding. I won't forget it, Moises, and I don't think many of you should as well. It was an outstanding finish. And obviously then attention is created. And also the time both big VAR calls in this game took is just insulting. It really is. The first one takes so long. Semi-automated offsides were supposed to be in place in the Premier League at the start of this year. They're only going to come in now, I think next weekend, isn't it? And of course Spurs have their disallowed goal, which rightly was the case. I mean, it was a foul. But then even the fact that Paulson doesn't see it in real time, he doesn't have an obscured view, he's looking right at it, so there's that. He doesn't do anything about it, and it takes him so long for him to look at the screen and the monitor to decide whether that is a clear and obvious error. Just again, you have to talk about the incompetence of officiating. Chelsea got away with it in this game, but you don't want to use it as a crutch and an excuse, but it's hard to just ignore in games like this, and it's a shame for a big London derby that, again, VAR is being talked about. The offside maybe should have been given, shouldn't have been given. I think it's obvious that Sarr's challenge is a foul. I know Ange's frustration over the amount of time it takes, but it's a foul. It is. But it's just the length of time that then contributes to a mad extended added time of like 12 minutes, because how long it takes to get to these decisions is just insulting, especially when you're inside the ground. And I'm sure it's frustrating even watching it from a distance. So the Spurs disallowed goal was also a bit of a let-off for Robert Sanchez, undeniably. Like, Sanchez flaps at it. On another day, where in a universe where either the foul doesn't get called back or it isn't a foul at all, Sanchez is in big trouble. But he does make up for it in some way by the big save late on, where I feared he jumped too early. But it's a big save. Listen, we give Sanchez a lot of criticism, and I think rightly so. I don't think he's a good enough goalkeeper. I don't think the save from Son means suddenly now all is forgiven. But when a player does something good, even if they've been performing badly, you've still got to give them credit, and it's defining in a game like that. So, obviously for him a big moment. And Chelsea hold on, really. Talking about some individuals, obviously I think Caicedo's man of the match, outstanding. Palmer contributing to the goal. Enzo Fernandez, the presence of Jackson made a big difference. I think Malo Gusto had probably his best performance of the season. Given when I didn't see Reece in the starting 11, I was slightly worried it was going to be a mistake by Enzo Maresca, but he was vindicated. I think Gusto still, maybe not contributing in the final third like we'd hope, but I do think his all-round performance defensively was immaculate. And defensively, all-round Chelsea were pretty good. Cucurella, maybe not one of his best performances, but, still one-on-one. I like how he does rile up the crowd by the way. Even if he's made a mistake, he'll try to rectify it very quickly and usually does, especially with a 50-50. Trev Chalobah came into this game instead of Wesley Fofana. If he's fit, I think Fofana probably starts this game. Chalobah was Chelsea's best centre-back. And that's not trying to talk down Levi Colwill. It's just I think Chalobah had an amazing game. From the off, playing in that ball, I thought physically he outdid. Dom Solanke was kept quiet, and that's for all of Chelsea's defence to take credit for. But, I think Trev, again, kind of showing, I wasn't surprised he stepped up for a game like this. One of my favourite moments in the game that probably won't be replayed. It's not going to be something that's shared widely, but I thought it was wonderful. Van der Ven comes to, I think it was, Chalobah had made a run, a galloping run up the pitch, and it was below me in knee stopper. And he goes kind of shoulder barges with Van der Ven, beats him to the ball. Van der Ven then kind of comically jumps forward and tries to dive to con the linesman into a foul. It doesn't get given. And obviously there's a lot of enjoyment from the Chelsea fans at that point. And then literally, Chalobah's, really bigging it up with the crowd, completely bodies Van der Ven. And then Van der Ven literally gets subbed from that moment. So quite comical, and I think just summed up Chalobah's performance. A Cobham centre-back pairing getting a clean sheet against Spurs. Didn't have to do a lot. Listen, I mean, Spurs didn't offer anything. And but I think for Trev, again, I've brought up this point many times. He's a durable, reliable centre-back in the Premier League. And I just don't know why you'd overlook that. I think he's better than Tosin. I actually think based on just consistent evidence over at Chelsea, people may not like this, but I do think he has proved a better, in terms of, again, evidence, like actual evidence of him playing football matches for Chelsea. I think he's better than both Fofana and Colwill. I think Fofana has high potential, but we haven't seen that much of Fofana, and it's all right having potential, but if you can't be relied upon for a majority of the season, it's very difficult then to build a team around you. Chalobah has been there, seen it, done it. He's pretty durable in terms of not getting long-term injuries. And even as a squad player, I think he's a valuable one for Chelsea. I really do. And I think that was proved once again last night. So I don't know why he's not in the plans. Unless you were going to go out there and sign a flurry of really good centre-backs in the summer, which kind of has gone a little bit quiet in recent... I know we've got Sarr coming from Strasbourg, so maybe he will offer something there. But really, I don't know why Trev is again being overlooked. Because if Fofana's out for a long period of time, it's likely that Trev is going to be the centre-back partner for Levi for the rest of the season. And that's another opportunity for Trev to kind of do what he's done for most of his Chelsea career and end the season in a strong way. And everyone's looking at him and going, yeah, it's a pretty consistent player. And maybe this time common sense prevails. And I'm not saying Trev becomes the undeniable superstar defender, but everyone kind of realizes, yeah, it probably is better we keep this guy for the long term in our squad, because he more times than not, he steps up and he is someone that you can rely on to put on a consistent level of performance in the Premier League. And I thought last night was a really good one. I do just want to quickly give praise to both Maresca and Colwill. Firstly, Maresca, obviously, from a coaching point of view, he had to win this game. He was under immense pressure and his team performed for him. He was proven right over selection decisions for Malo Gusto. Obviously huge for him to have Nicolas Jackson back. And for him, obviously, as a Chelsea manager, beating Spurs twice in a season is big for him. So you got to give him credit for that. And I thought his post-match comments were good. I thought it was nice to see him actually credit the fans. I don't think he's helped himself in public recently, but you got to take the adulation. And I just hope for his sake and for his players' sake, that momentum can now drive us forward into some big games. it it's hard to know because Spurs are a real mess. And Chelsea historically do beat Spurs. This isn't the greatest Chelsea performance, but undeniably it was one they just needed to win and needed to get out with those 3 points. They have now. I hope it's a platform for bigger and better things for the rest of this season. And I hope the positivity and momentum can carry through to Brentford, can carry through to the Conference League game, can carry through beyond that. Because it needs to. Can Jackson start to find his goal scoring form again? I think he needs to. Same with Cole Palmer. But intangibles just simply weren't there. That's the thing that insulted me. Go back and watch my review of the Arsenal game. The thing that infuriates me about Chelsea and any football team, I think if you're a football supporter, but especially Chelsea in recent months, is watching a team that I don't see a team that understands the severity of the situation, that seems to me to understand the stakes of key games, to understand those intangible elements that have to be there if you want to be a good football team. Last night was so much more of what fans are going to be proud of watching Chelsea. And it shows you that it doesn't take that much. You don't need to play 5-star Barcelona, Brazil 1970 football. In some ways, it's kind of those classic old intangible things that get fans behind you as a football team. This is a unique game. It's not going to be like this against Ipswich. It's not going to be like this against Everton. But I hope that it can start a positive end to what hopefully will be deemed, even though it's been very tricky, a good end to the year where we get Champions League football, because it's within our hands. And looking at stats and looking at numbers, I mean, I think that if Chelsea can win one of their next 2 away games, it puts us in a really good position, hopefully. So hopefully that form can continue. But those are my thoughts on the game. Please let me know yours in the comments below, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.